Hey guys, my name is Michael Daza, and welcome to my presentation for African art. Thank you for taking the time to watch my video, and I hope you enjoy my presentation and information being provided. There were many artifacts that interested me in our journey to museums, galleries, and private collectors' residence in this semester. But the pieces that I found very interesting was a figure that originated in the Republic of Congo and made by the Yombe people. The Yombe people were located in the far northern tip of Congo. Like other tribes, they were creative in making masks, drums, and tools for everyday purposes and ceremonies. But the figure that I thought put them on the map, because they actually believed in the power, were their Nkisi Nkonde nail figures. These fetish figures were protective figures used by individuals, families, or whole communities to destroy or weaken evil spirits. They were also known to honor contracts or oath-takings and decide arguments. The primary materials used to make an Nkisi figure were wood, nails, and blades. Other materials like mirrors, clothes, beads, shells, and sometimes leather were also used. The spiritual healer known as the Nganga would activate the statue using magical and medicinal substances. The healer then would deposit the medicine in cavities cut into either the head or the stomach of the figure. If there is an agreement between two people, he may have the parties involved in the agreement lick the blades before they are inserted, thus binding them to the oaths. One of the first things that came to my mind when I looked at these figures was this guy called Pinhead. When exploring this character, I found out that he identifies himself as neither explicitly angelic or demonic, which I thought was interesting in furthering my research on the Nkisi figures, because the power of the statue acted on behalf of the owner or the client of the figure. So its powers could be positive or negative, depending on what it was asked to do. I believe this statue inflicted fear if one was to be part of an agreement because it looks scary, and the person would have to always think of carrying his word and not breaking it unless he wants to be punished by the Nkisi. These Nkisi Nkonde figures were brought back to Europe during the 19th century when colonial expansion was taking place and were thought to be barbaric. Unlike other artifacts being brought to the West, these were actually looked down on by Christian missionaries and were often burned because in their eyes they were actually believed to have real power. The few that made it to the streets of Europe were treated as artifacts of colonized cultures rather than as artworks and held such little economic value as opposed to today. This Nkonde figure at Sotheby's was starting at $400,000, but the winning bid was for $1,805,000. Time and institutions that classify what art is drive the significant change of their value. I for one don't agree with the exploitation of these particular figures. I felt that they should have been respected and left where they were. The people that made these artifacts don't even get recognized in museums and auctions. The only thing that traces back to where it came from are its provenance. To them, these weren't initially made to be art. These were actual functional objects whose efficacy was measured in ritual and magical terms and not aesthetically. This picture was taken at Bill Carg's Contemporary African Art Gallery, located in 330 West 108th Street, and the piece is done by El Anatsui from Ghana. His remark on why he did this artwork called Tagomizer out of liquor bottle caps was powerful and takes a look on how he perceived colonialism. His remark went something along the lines of Europeans benefiting through Africa by their natural resources and certain technology, and all the Africans got out of colonization was liquor. To me, this is considered to be African art because his intentions were to create an art piece, unlike most of the traditional works that we see in certain museums that aren't and were simply taken from a village and placed in these institutions. Contemporary figures of the Nkonde aren't done for ritual purposes anymore, like they were initially intended for. If there are very few people making them. I believe that most done today are for profit and purely artistic representation. They really are cool to look at, so even the ones that don't have history from Africa are still being sold at high prices. The purpose for this video is to answer the question, what's so African about African art? My response is that I agree with what Bill Carg stated earlier in our class visit to his gallery, and that is that you have to be from Africa. but I will also add that you have to intentionally be making an art piece and not a spiritual figure that is being taken out of its context. When it comes to masks and sculptures that have been stripped of its purpose and being sold in Africa, I only see them as souvenirs. In regards of diaspora, I also believe that they can not be considered African art because they are being done somewhere else, and the artists that made their piece weren't born and raised in Africa. This wraps up my video presentation on the Minkisi Minkondi sculptures of Congo and my opinion on how African art should be classified. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for viewing.